The Voice Truth Treaty is using the disparity of family violence to remove children by welfare as a commodities for Aboriginal corporation to receive funds from. National Indigenous Australia Agency for Statistics, #Aboriginal Protection Policy.
1820s. Although most were closed in the 70s and 80s, some lasted up until the 90s and others are still in practice today as schools. In 1869, British colonies in Victoria established legal action and began the Aborigines Protection Act, which allowed Aboriginal children to be legally stolen from their families. Queensland followed suit in 1897, along with the rest of the country not long after. However, it wasn't until 1937 that the legal action of assimilation was adopted, which essentially birthed the idea of blood quantum, and would begin the active attempt to breed the black out of First Nations people. Once they'd bred the melanin from our skin, we were deemed socially acceptable and therefore civilized enough to successfully assimilate into society. This is evidence of the continued concealment of legalized genocide, or in other words, systemic oppression, glorifying genetic superiority and genetic warfare so much that they constantly used it as a tool to justify this unconscionable act of stealing children as young as infant babies, even claiming entitlement over a fetus in the mother's stomach, which DCP still practice today. More than 27,000 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people aged 50 years and over in 2018 to 2019 were survivors of the stolen generation. During that same period, approximately 142,200 Indigenous peoples aged 18 and over were the descendants of members of the stolen generation, including 13,200 people who were themselves also stolen generation survivors. In some families, children from 3 or more generations were taken. However, the exact number of the stolen generation will never be known. Affecting anywhere between 1 in 10 to 1 in 3 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, the stolen generation has weaved its way into most Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families today. Unfortunately, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children are still 10.6 times more likely than non-Indigenous children to be removed from their families. Regardless of whether children are being put with family or not, it's about time resources and funding are put into First Nations mothers and fathers so that they can keep their children. The twisted projection of protection and saving is what drives the need for stolen children. This is what infects the mind of the uneducated. It's clearly a mentality that's inherent in society because the language used today mirrors the language that was used almost 200 years ago. I can't make myself any clearer. Stealing children is specifically practiced to guide the process of assimilation and conceal the historic process of colonization. The same mentality that allowed the first mission in 1826 is the same mentality that allows DCP to keep stealing First Nations children today. DCP and the Australian government need to be held accountable for allowing the continuation of a legally operated genocide. Sorry doesn't mean anything if there's no changed behaviour. Our babies need to be heard and we hold obligation to be their voice. Let's use the 26th of May to stop the stealing of our children.